Hello, this is Abhishek and I welcome you to yet another feature from the TheCapitalNet TV. It's great to be back with all of you today, and I'm excited to welcome the co-founder of the legendary brand Starbucks, that's Zev Seigl. Zev needs no further introduction, and in the next few minutes, he will share with us his thoughts on the evolution of the global startup and innovation ecosystem over the last 4 to 5 decades. My next question is specific to the viewers of the TheCapitalNet TV that include investors, mentors, advisors, and entrepreneurs. Interestingly, you have played all these three roles in your career. Which persona do you think you cherish the most, of being an entrepreneur early in your life or of now being a mentor, advisor, and an investor?
Well, as an investor, I'm a total lightweight. I should tell you that I am not an active, really active investor at all. However, as an advisor, I think I'm one of the more active people in the world. And I have a particular type of entrepreneur that I try to work with, and that is somebody who has an idea. Maybe the business has established itself a little bit, but they're at the point where they need angel investors, sometimes venture capital. And this is a world, Abhishek, that you are very familiar with, but it is a difficult place to be if you're an entrepreneur. You've got this great idea, you're full of confidence, and maybe you enroll in an accelerator. And the first thing that happens in the accelerator is that you learn that you're going to have to deal with investors, and they're going to be asking a lot of questions. They're going to challenge every assumption that you have. And as a 28-year-old entrepreneur with 2 college degrees, you're not used to that. You're confident. You're doing what society expects you to do. You're taking a risk, and you've educated yourself, and now you have this great idea. Who are these people that are asking me all these questions? And what happens is, certainly something that I learned, and I've been watching hundreds of entrepreneurs over the last 10 years go through this. You learn that the investor's money is so important that you have to deal with them as equals. There's no getting around it, especially for what I would call a freestanding startup, one that's not part of a corporation. Remember, corporations do startups too. They call them new divisions, but they're basically internal startups. My interest is mostly, and my experience is mostly with the independent startups. 2 men and 2 women who were in college together, and they have this brilliant insight about the solar panel industry, and they've developed some software so that companies who are wholesalers in the solar panel industry will make more money. Okay, that's a fantasy story, but it's not unusual to have that kind of thing. The problem is they also need to be able to explain their business to investors, and investors want to know about all the usual things that many of your listeners know about it. The first thing on their mind is, who are you? I mean, it's really hard to accept that. They want to know. They don't want to know just where you went to school. They want to know what you're like, why you think, what your weaknesses are, and then, because you're a smart person, how you compensate for your weaknesses. So, for example, you're the scientific genius in a company that's using artificial intelligence to revolutionize an industry. Well, the investors really appreciate you as a scientific genius. Now they want to talk to the CFO. Oh, where's the CFO? Well, we have a part-time CFO. It's an accountant that worked for my father. He's been helping us a little bit. That's not good enough anymore, because you're asking the investors, for example, for in US dollars, say $500,000 US. That's not good enough. They want to talk to your CFO. And so this is, some people who are listening to this or watching this are thinking, well, of course. But most of the people listening are thinking, really? I have to get a CFO. I can't afford that. I run into that every week. But there are ways to solve that problem. I can't afford a CFO. So that's a big issue. And then there are simple issues that in the ecosystem for entrepreneurs and getting funding. So I mentioned earlier that it's really easy to get in touch with people now. You find them on LinkedIn. You try to get them to do a Zoom meeting with you, which they're happy to do because they can work it into their day usually. Not everybody, but most people. I have people contacting me that way. I'm always surprised. And then you try to explain the idea to them, and it turns out that the PowerPoint that you've developed with your team doesn't really seem to be working for the listener. It works for you as the entrepreneur, but the potential investor or the head of an accelerator or an incubator doesn't seem to be jumping up and down and smiling and getting excited with you. And why is that? Well, let's assume that you have a good idea, but that you're not presenting it properly. So one of the first things I usually ask entrepreneurs is, once we've become friendly and trusting of each other, I say, well, there's some weaknesses in your presentation. For example, Lucy, I've noticed that you keep putting your finger in your ear while you're talking to me. It's very strange. Why are you doing that? And or it may be another mannerism that a person has, that they only want to look off this way. They don't want to look at the camera. That doesn't work. These are some very simple, basic things. So I will ask them, have you ever videotaped yourself giving a presentation, or just recorded it on Zoom and played it back for yourself? And the answer almost 98% of the time is, we've never done that. Now, why would a person who has worked for a year to get a Zoom meeting with an angel investor who's interested in their industry, why wouldn't they rehearse and record what they're going to, the presentation, so that they can get it right? So that they can find the flaws before anybody else sees them. I don't know why, but very few people do that. And I think that there's a natural reason that people don't want to embarrass themselves. That's one thing. They don't want to find out. They suspect that they're doing something wrong. Or maybe, like more common, they're just a little insecure. Lots of us are insecure. So they don't really want to see that video. Ooh, it's going to be very painful. I can tell you that there's a reason why I'm not talking to you like this through my hand. It's because about 15 years ago, I did a video interview with for the friend. It was a very good interview. I said, I think I want to improve my skills a little bit. And he stopped me about 3 minutes into the recording. And he said, Zev, take your hand away from your face. I didn't know that I did that. I haven't done it since, I can tell you. And then the PowerPoints, this is Abhishek. You see PowerPoints every day, I'm sure. Some of them are really fabulous. Communicate what needs to be communicated and no more. There's no extra stuff in it that gets in your way. The graphs are easy to read. But those are the ones that probably has had a critique. That PowerPoint that's so fabulous has probably been critiqued by 6 people. They've picked it apart and said, change this, change that title, pick that graph out. Why are you talking about this? You don't even need to say that. All these critiques. And it's a big problem with entrepreneurs. Their PowerPoints make sense to themselves, but not to the people that are viewing them. And these are some of the things that are big problems at the point at which a small company needs to talk to investors. There's an image that I'd like to give your audience. You are sitting in a room with a potential investor. So when you're talking to them on Zoom, you should think of yourself as sitting in a room, and it's a woman who is invested in companies like yours, okay? But this room is special. This is a fantasy room. It has 6 doors, not 1 door, 6 doors. And each door represents a reason why this woman is not going to invest in your company. You do not want to give her a reason to go and open that door and leave. You don't give her a reason to go out that door that says poor management team, or the other door that says too much competition, or the third door that says ridiculous stock price. You don't give them a reason to leave the room. Now, I always think of that, and I try to get other people to think about it too. So what do I have to do to keep this person interested? Just keep them at the table. And that kind of imagery usually leads to coming up with the right kind of communication with each angel investor.
What's your view on this recent mind shift which has happened in the ecosystem of moving away from solving a problem to creating an impact?
Yeah, impact, disrupting an industry. These are terms that we hear a lot. Everybody uses them. And the impact sometimes has social enterprise overtones to it. The impact might be to do something good for the planet, like get more people to drive electric cars. Especially, for instance, I live in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. All of our electricity in this part of the world comes from hydroelectricity, from dams. Electric cars make a lot of sense here. Automobiles and trucks powered by water falling over a dam, turning a turbine. Boy, that's just perfect. There aren't very many government programs here, or advertising programs or companies that really try to encourage the population of this part of the world to get into electric vehicles. People are doing it because they're interested. I find that quite weird. It's the perfect solution for transportation here. So, you know, this is a problem when you start to think of major trends in the small enterprise. So the impact that, on the industry impact, are you enabling other companies to make money? That's a good impact. I'm working with the company, he's in Buenos Aires, Argentina. It's a good team. They're using AI to solve some problems in connecting consumers to products. They work with large corporations. They're basically giving corporations that sell products to consumers, B2C, that they're giving them better tools to analyze their methods of advertising and marketing. I would say that's having impact. Not only are they going to make a profit, they're actually beginning to make a profit right now, but they are also going to enable other businesses to make more money. And that's a nice impact. Doing good for the environment, as I said, is another wonderful impact. Enabling people to live more comfortably or better or healthier, great impacts. I'm working with a wonderful team that's doing, they're developing a way for restaurants to communicate to people who are thinking about going out to dinner. This will be after COVID, right? Thinking about going out to dinner again. People who have special diets. They certain foods they can't eat, either for health reasons or religious reasons. So they can quickly find out not only where there are restaurants, but which restaurants can meet their dietary needs. That's pretty cool. That's really great impact. And investors are attracted to that sort of thing. These are important issues. In many parts of the world, for instance, I criticized a company recently, three brilliant guys in Turkey who have a really cool idea. It's a tech business. And they showed me their PowerPoint and this, and I said, you know, where are your investors going to be? And he said, well, a lot of them are going to be in Europe, we think. I said, well, I think you should think about getting a woman involved in your company because you look like a bunch of guys and European investors are not going to like that. They want to see that you're having an impact socially. So surely there is a responsible position that a woman could fill. So when you show your slide of your team, it isn't all just men. That's a social impact. These are important issues. The business doesn't really stand alone, removed from Seattle anymore, removed from society. I didn't mean Seattle. It exists as a part of society. That's a big change.
Yeah. So what are the two core skills you think are required for successful entrepreneurs when they are in the early stage of a company or a startup?
Well, the core skills vary at different stages of the company, the core skills that the leadership needs. And that's why you often see leadership changing as the company expands. Different skills are needed. Typically, at the beginning, you need people who can operate on multiple tracks at the same time. Deal with the product, deal with the regulators, the government agencies, deal with the accounting system, deal with all sorts of things. A generalist, I could do that. With the startups that I've done, but quickly the company starts to need specialists, and this is the juncture at which the entrepreneur who can do a little bit of everything needs to give authority to people who have greater expertise in a particular area. This is pretty hard transition, difficult transition for many young men and women. They're used to having control. That's why they went into business in the first place. They wanted control of something. They wanted to express their own inner concepts and personality. They wanted to do something that would reveal what a good person they are. That's very nice. But when the company starts having a team and maybe 2 or 3 levels of management, when you get to the 3rd level of management, now the entrepreneur has to give up a lot of authority to other people and become a manager. And by that, I mean there are, at its most basic level, there are tasks that need to be done, and somebody needs to ask if they've been done and done well. That's the leader of the company. It's difficult to make that transition. There is this weird pull in 2 directions. On the one hand, in the early stage of the company, the entrepreneur needs to do a lot of things well, but quickly, usually at the end of a first year, they need to find other people who are better at many areas than they are. Marketing, finance, logistics. If they are not able to give up the tight control that they've had in each of those areas, the company is going to suffer. And if the company suffers enough, the investors will remove the founder.
Interesting. What are your thoughts on the ability of an entrepreneur being able to handle both success and failure in right proportion as part of this journey?
I want to make sure I understand the question, Abhishek. Are you asking about entrepreneurs dealing with success and failure?
Both in equal proportions and with balance.
Well, hopefully you don't have much failure to deal with. There is a theory that a company can get going, and that if it turns out that there is a problem, that they can fix it later. You know, we're going to open stores in a new city, and if it doesn't work, we'll just close them and move on to something else. But there is people that talk that way. We're going to develop a new, version 2 of our software, which is going to include some other things. And those other things that the components that are going to be included are going to probably catch the attention of one of our competitors, and they're going to be really mad and they're going to come after us. Well, that kind of talk is very bold, but what's also going to happen is in the process of expanding into that new area, the company is going to use up some of its capital. So when it comes time to correct a mistake that's been made, there may not be enough money to correct the mistake. So you say to yourself, we'll raise more. I would love if we, could hear from the people that are listening to this of the stories of what happened when they were with a company that they were probably working for. The company made a mistake. They tried to correct. They didn't have enough money. They went to investors and the investors said, you want more money and you've just made that horrible mistake? Are you kidding me? Why would I invest in your company again? And so the company dies, or it gets sold at a discount. Yeah, I'm not a great fan of making a lot of mistakes and treating them as learning experiences and recovering from them. Sometimes you can't recover from them. If you're a small company, frequently you can't recover from them. So it's better to make sure that you're dealing in a way that's going to enable you to survive and be successful. And that usually is in some way linked to maintaining a good cash position so you don't run out of money. But what happens if there is a problem? What do you do? These are very tough situations that really are a test for men and women all over the world in business. And you don't have to be an entrepreneur. You can be working for a corporation and something goes wrong in your division that you're in charge of, and you have to do something about it. Sometimes it means firing someone, not because you want them to be blamed instead of you, but because they are the ones that actually are causing the problem. Firing someone you've been working with for 3 or 4 years is not that much fun. And it's very painful. I've done it. And you can rationalize it in a lot of ways. It's going to be better for her. She's going to go on to great success, et cetera, et cetera. But just the same, it's difficult to do. And what happens if a competitor that you undervalued, a company that you knew was a competitor, but you didn't think much of them, you thought your organization was stronger, your competitor makes a couple of good moves. Well, they get a little more capital from investors and they improve their product and they come out with version 3, and suddenly you're losing sales to that competitor. Those are very painful moments, and they require bringing the team together, strategizing about what you're going to do, and hopefully dealing with it in a constructive way. I must say that dealing with the downside of any kind of enterprise is way tougher than guiding it to the upside. I can give you a story from the early days of Starbucks. This is in my division. We came out with a new line of teas that we thought we could sell in grocery stores, not in our own retail stores, but in grocery stores. And we did a good job of the packaging design, product blending, and we hired a sales representative, independent sales representative, who got us into the 2 big grocery chains in our market, which at that time was still Seattle. And there we were on the shelf. And a major tea company, your audience will laugh, it was Lipton's, went to the grocery stores and said, don't you remember that we're bringing out this new line of fruit teas and we need that shelf space that you just gave to those guys? And what did the supermarkets do? They kicked us out and gave the space to Lipton's. And they said, come and get your merchandise, basically. So we had a lot of little boxes of tea for a long time. So, I mean, those are things that can happen. that was an example. I told that story because it's a good example of an unanticipated reaction from a customer, the supermarkets. They loved us when we went in, but when Lipton's wanted the space, they didn't love us anymore. These things happen with software companies, with B2C platforms all over the world, where you suddenly find that there is a downside to your plan that you didn't pay enough attention to. Those are very difficult to deal with. It requires a great deal of personal strength.
I have two more questions from my end, Zev, before we kind of move towards the summarization of this conversation. And the first among them being is, one of the key stakeholders in any business is the customer. And you've spoken about it on the importance of educating the customer. Any best practices you would like to share, which you think our early stage entrepreneurs can adopt when they are going into the market in terms of educating the customer with their products or services?
They're not only educating the customer, but getting real insight from the customer. In terms of educating the customer, 2022 is a great year to want to educate a customer. There's so many mediums available to do that. And many of them, all of the things online can be done at the customer's schedule. They click on, they go to your website. Your backend identifies that it's a customer who's just logged on, somebody who's already a customer. So you show them some things, and you lure them into doing a better job with your product, or maybe to buying a new version, or whatever it is. So 2022 is a wonderful year, a point in time to want to educate customers. I really don't see this as an impossible problem anymore. Where it becomes more difficult is if you have to do it face to face. I was working with a woman in the UK, she's in England, who has a company that involves equipment that has to be delivered in a small truck to be installed in taverns, in pubs. Man, I'm so worried about this company. That's really a pretty dangerous thing in the area of the internet. She can't deliver her product electronically. It's a big metal box, not, well, literally, it's inside a metal box. And so I'm picturing her drivers and her vehicles and all the things that could go wrong. And, this is pretty tough indeed. But she's going to have to do it because the customer has to get the product and have the product installed properly. And then while the technician is there, they instruct the staff in how to use it. By the way, this is also a big problem in the coffee industry. Espresso machines have advanced to be unbelievably interesting and complicated, but they require a lot of training. And the big espresso machine companies, the manufacturers, have regional training centers now where the baristas can come in and get trained before the machine is installed in the coffee bar. Things that can be delivered online, much easier.
To summarize this conversation, if I have to ask you two more questions, what are the future trends which you see the next 2 or 3 years that excite you the most to be part of this ecosystem globally?
The ecosystem that's out there now for entrepreneurs, that's what I would like to address, is what's in store for entrepreneurs. Well, over the last 10 years, really, accelerators and incubators have multiplied, and they are a tremendous asset. They enable young business people with good ideas to quickly, usually within a few months, figure out if they really have something that can become a business, and if they're the right person to do it, while they're within the comfort zone of an incubator or an accelerator. And if it's not going to work, they find out there. So this is before their family has invested money, before their friends have invested money, and before that money gets lost. they find out early on now, because of these wonderful organizations, whether or not they're going to make it or have success indicators. And can they do the forecast? Do they have the right team? Are they in the right market? Is their cost of delivering whatever it is they're selling under control, so that they have enough profit margin on each sale? And is their overhead under control so that the company can make money from all those sales? These are all basic issues. And there are so many systems set up now. In addition, there's another trend that's been happening lately that I would say in the last 4 years. These are, I don't know, there's no name for them yet. They are networks of angels, groups of angel investors who have a paid staff member. So it might be, I've seen them as small as 20 or 30 investors, men and women who want to invest, but they want somebody to do some screening for them. They don't want to take meetings from people who aren't ready. So these groups, these angel investment groups, are a really great thing for entrepreneurs seeking funding. So you're talking to people as an entrepreneur. You're trying to find out who's out there who might invest, and you're talking to this one woman, and she says, "Well, I'm a little bit interested, but I think my angel investment group would like to hear from you. And here is the manager that we hired. Call her." That's just fabulous. Now you've got, if you pass the test, you've got access to maybe 20 or 30 angel investors who if you're really lucky, you'll get to present to. And these days, you don't even have to travel to another city to do the presentation. You do it on Zoom. These things are tremendously helpful to entrepreneurs. Also, I'm seeing in some areas, I don't know what to call it, a sort of education for investors. Investors have been kept on a pedestal. They know everything, right? So they don't need to be educated. They're people who've made money. Well, that's actually not true. A lot of investors don't know how to analyze the potential of a new company. And I know this is shocking to some of the people listening, but it's really true. There are organizations now that are basically running, a night school for investors, where they learn how to do the analysis and how to get yourself as an investor into a position where you'll be able to invest in really promising small companies. And I'm really happy to see this because in my experience, personal and with the people that I coach, frequently the investors don't have the tools to understand what the opportunity is. It kind of mystifies them. I made my money running cement plants where we make concrete. I don't understand what you're doing. Is that a reason not to continue to find out and to, they should have a way to analyze that opportunity, because there won't be very many opportunities to invest in the concrete plants. And this is, it's happening quite a bit now, training for investors.
Finally, so what makes Zev today compared to when you started back in 1970?
Oh man, I'm a different guy in 2022 than I was in 1972. I'm really interested now in the dialogue with people who are starting companies. I really enjoy it, and I like it when I can help them get to the point where they do get funded and start to have some success. But Abhishek, I also really like helping people get to the point without my telling them in so many words, where they say, I don't think I'm getting anywhere with this. I'm going to go take that job offer from IBM that I've been thinking about. That's a good outcome from my point of view for a coaching relationship. If they get to the point where they decide it's a go, or where they decide it's not a go. Those are both good outcomes from my point of view. And I really enjoy the process, the dialogue that it takes to get to that decision point. By the way, sometimes the decision to drop the idea is very subtle. As a coach, you get used to this. They stop emailing. They'll just, you'll be emailing every week, and then suddenly a month goes by and you don't hear anything. And that's when you know that they're either being successful and they're out making sales, or they've dropped the idea and they're going to get a job instead. I monitor those things, and it's just part of the relationship. So I would say what makes me tick today is these numerous relationships around the globe with people who are doing what I set out to do in the early 1970s.